All right, I think we'll get this started. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Brody Sumner. I am the Business Development Manager here at Heartland Seniors Finance. Also on the line today, we have Nathan Monroe, who is he's a credit assessor at Heartland. He also will be the broker support analyst in coming weeks. So he will be a familiar face or a familiar voice very soon. So anyway, welcome to the first webinar of 2021. So today we'll be running through the application to settlement process from submission right on through to settlement. So I'm hoping that this will assist you in your understanding of our application process, allowing for a smoother experience to hopefully manage your customers' expectations a bit more effectively. So let's get started. Oh, and with questions, we have a Q&A box down on the Zoom meeting there. We will be answering these at the end of the webinar. You can write them in as the webinar goes on. Please keep them somewhat relevant to the webinar. Any other kinds of questions you may have, feel free to contact me or give me a call, send an email through. I'll be happy to address those questions when we get there. All right, let's get started. So here's the agenda today. So first we'll be talking about the stage of prior to submission. I'll be going through, ensuring you're workshopping your scenarios with the broker team and that you're adhering to NCCP regulation. And also, I'll be speaking about utilizing the broker section of our website for your applications. We'll talk about the supporting documents that are required for the assessment process. We'll talk about submitting the application. So when you submit that through the broker portal, we will then receive that, and initial assessment and full assessments will be completed. Then for the compliance call, we will make a request for the compliance call. Will be the one time our compliance team will make a call through to the customer directly, and then the approval will be made after that. Once the approval is done, loan documentation will be generated. So we'll be sending the documents out, they'll be received back, and then we can ultimately settle. I'll then run through a few common delays, which I think will allow for, will be important to be aware of, which will allow for that smoother experience with our application process. We'll run through a couple scenarios, and then we'll answer the questions at the end. Cool, so let's get started. So prior to submissions, before you are making your submission for an application, I always think it's really important to give the broker team a call at Heartland to discuss your scenarios. So we'll be happy to workshop through your scenarios. And you may think, well, this is just another step in the application process. I just want to get the application through. Well, I think it actually does the opposite. I think it raises the likelihood of there being further delays down the road. So so for example, you might have a red postcode that you may not be sure will be acceptable for us. So I can put a request through for credit to have that approved, and then from there, you're saving some time for yourselves later on. So that's just an example of one. But yeah, please give us a call at the broker team. We'll be happy to discuss your scenarios. During this process, we need to ensure that NCCP regulation is adhered to when completing your application. So as you may know, our application form and our application process are closely in line with NCCP regulation. Heartland has worked very closely with ASIC to ensure this is the case. And you as the broker are also will need to ensure that you are adhering to NCCP regulation. And to assist with this, you will need to ensure your customer reads and understands the reverse mortgage information statement, which is essentially an overview of what a reverse mortgage is. And it just details what interest being added to the loan and how equity may look into the future. And furthermore, another requirement is the Money Smart reverse mortgage calculator. You'll need to run that through with your clients, and these provide equity projections for your client who'll be taking out a reverse mortgage. It just provides a good basis for your conversations. And and it will ensure that you are adhering to those NCCP regulations. So have a look at that. You can Google the Money Smart Reverse Mortgage Calculator. You'll find it there. Make sure you're running that through with your clients. And then I just think it's important to utilize the Heartland Seniors broker section of our website. You'll see the screenshot down below. It's under broker portal. Not to confuse yourselves with the broker portal online application. Those are two separate things, but in the broker portal on our main website, this is where you can find a few things to assist you with your applications. So you got the postcode lookup tool, got product guides, fee schedule, and the application form supporting documents checklist. So make sure you guys utilize that. So speaking of supporting documents, these will be required in the assessment process. You see a screenshot to the right there, that's your application supporting documents. It essentially works as a checklist. You can, as you run through your application forms, you can make sure you tick those off as you go through. So first off, we have identification, standard stuff. You got your birth certificate, driver's license, passport. These will need to be certified or verified. We use third-party systems internally to verify these. Sometimes it may not come back, and we will need to have a justice of the peace or the solicitor that is required for the loan. They can verify those IDs. We are required to see rates notices and insurances, assuming that the annual premium is under $500, $600. There you go, 600. Give it a go, Nathan. And proof of income, which relates to the previous two. We want to ensure that the customer is able to pay for their rates, to pay for the insurance, they're able to generally maintain the condition of their property. So yeah. We also want to see debt information. So any debts that are to be required to be repaid or consolidated, we will need to see the full account details and make sure that they're current. And these can be for credit card debts that are to be repaid or mortgages. And then we have the power of attorney documents. So you may require a power of attorney in the application. Your customer may be of not sound mind or they lack capacity to sign the documents. So in this case, we would require a power of attorney document to be registered at the LTO or a certified copy. We also have a power of attorney webinar that the previous BDM went through a few months ago. You can always refer to that for any more information on the power of attorney, or you can give me a call. You can give the broker support a call and we can help you there. So when we get to the submitting the application, once we put through the submission, hopefully it's been put through the broker portal online application tool with supporting documents. So when you do make your submissions, please ensure that you fill in the application form as much as possible with as much information as you can, because our assistants will go over it with a fine-tooth comb and we'll pick up on things. So but that means further delays down the road. So try to get as much information as you can when submitting your applications. Also, you can also submit your applications through our email address for applications@seniorsfinance.com.au. But it should be noted that when it's actually, so if you post through your application through the broker portal online application tool, it will actually save some time because it automatically integrates into our system with a manual application form that is sent through the email address. It has to be manually loaded, sorry. So that can cause for some delay. So it might be preferable to submit your applications through the broker portal online application tool. For loading applications, so we will receive the application. The admin team will receive the application. At this point, the title search will be completed, and then at this point, the file will be allocated to an assessor. It should be noted that for title searches in Northern Territory, South Australia, and Tasmania, The search can sometimes take up to 3 days, which I'm sure some of your brokers will be aware of that, but I thought that's important to note. For the valuation, it is then ordered by the assessor, and an initial assessment will be completed. They'll be looking at the supporting documents, they'll be looking at the structural loan to ensure it all matches up. And then any kind of follow-ups will be made to the broker. It should be noted, though, that at this point, the valuation may not be ordered. In the case of, say, there's a red postcode, or you may have a max, the lend that is required is actually more than the LVR that we can provide. So we would need to we need to confirm a few more things before we move forward at that point. But once we receive the valuation back, and then a full assessment will be completed. The proposed loan structure and anticipated loan conditions will then be confirmed with you being the broker. I think it's important to also note with the valuation that does come back, we may have, there might be higher risk ratings such as about 4 or 5, which could indicate some red flags with the property. And in these cases, we may need to remedy that. And in some cases, we would decline the deal at this point. So that's just an important thing to note. And also, there may be essential repairs included on the valuation, which will also need to be looked into. We may require further lending to address those essential repairs. In some cases, there may not be any further lending possible, so we may decline it there. So those are just important things to take note of. That's why it's best to be asking all the questions you can at the beginning stages, and that you are writing as much information in the application form as you can, and also having discussions with the broker team to begin with. So now we're at the compliance call part. We have, so once the full assessment is done, a request is made by our assessor for a compliance call to be completed. Make contact with your customer. The compliance team will need to confirm their understanding of the reverse mortgage, the payments required to be made there, that they can stay within the home for as long as they choose, and how interest is added to the loan balance monthly. Their own. So at this point, we need to ensure that the structure set up is actually meeting the need. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So we also need to confirm that the understanding of the potential impact on Centrelink benefits, effect on the pension, especially if gifting is involved. So that's just an important. Regulation and how it may affect future needs. So it's like I spoke about earlier, looking about their future needs and the Hi, sorry, we're just having technical difficulties. We've just had an internet issue. If you just give me 2 minutes, we should be back online. All right, my apologies, everyone. We have some technical difficulties around the internet. Going forward, that should not happen again. So I think you might not have heard something for maybe the last 6 minutes. So I'll I'll start from the valuation. I believe that's what we may be up to. So yes, so from the valuation, when the valuation is ordered, it's ordered by the assessor and the initial assessment will be completed, and then follow-ups will be made to the broker. It should be noted that sometimes when the valuation has, the valuation at this point may not be ordered. That would depend. See, for example, you might have a red postcode, or for example, the max lend that we can provide is less than what has been requested. That's just a couple of important things to note. So we will need to make further confirmation before we do order that valuation. And the reason for that is because we want to ensure that your customer is not liable to pay for a valuation in the future if it does proceed to settlement. So if it does not proceed to settlement, sorry. And then we move on to the final assessment stage, the full assessment stage, when the valuation has been received and the full assessment will be completed. The proposed loan structure and anticipated loan conditions will be then confirmed with you as the broker. So for the valuation, we may receive some, when we receive the valuation back, the risk ratings may be a bit higher than expected, so 4 or 5, or we may have potential essential repairs that need to be remedied. In some circumstances, we may be able to remedy these with further lending or applying scaling, but in some cases, the deal may stop here because we simply are not comfortable with moving forward, or there is no further lending that we can provide to, say, address those essential repairs. So that's just something to know, and is a reason why that you need to be having conversations with your clients, understand the condition of their property, and you're writing as much information as you can in the application. So once that's all good, we'll move on to the compliance call. The assessor will make a request put a request through to our compliance team to then, who will then go on to call your customer directly and confirm a number of things. So they want to confirm the understanding, confirm the customer's understanding of the reverse mortgage. They understand how it works. They understand that there's no repayments are required to be made. They can stay within the home for as long as they like, and that interest is added to the loan balance monthly. They need to confirm that their needs will be met by the structure of the loan. So we want to look at the structure of the loan and see that it does make sense, and that the client understands that that structure is there to meet their needs. Also want to confirm that confirm their understanding of the potential impact on Centrelink benefits. The reverse mortgage can affect Centrelink pension, especially if it comes with gifting. So we will recommend that customers do have conversations with Centrelink to ensure that their pension would not be affected. If it is the case of gifting, then it is a requirement. We also, compliance team also call the customer directly to ensure their understanding of the potential impact on clients' equity in the future and how it may affect their future needs. That's just around the NCCP regulation. I was talking about how our application is designed to follow closely in line with NCCP regulation. So asking the questions, they understand that, you know, the reverse mortgage may have an effect on their equity in the future and how it may affect their future needs, such as aged care, the living expenses in the future, medical expenses, or plans for their estate. And a very important one for the compliance call is to ensure that there is no undue pressure or influence that is currently being that may be about with on the client, and so we need to ensure that essentially that the client is not a vulnerable customer. They might have family that may be applying pressure to them to quickly give them some money so they can pay their own debts. We want to ensure that that's not happening. And of course, there are other considerations involved with the compliance call. And at this point, once that's complete, the assessor will complete a submission and we'll go for final approval for the credit manager. So then we're up to the loan documentation stage. It should be noted before I continue, at the compliance call stage, we will confirm whether the customer will prefer to have their documents sent via express post or by email, and sent to the solicitor, and also copies sent to themselves. So at this point, once we have that, we'll generate that documentation and send those documents out. It's important to note here, actually, that you ensure that the customer has booked in or will be booking in a solicitor's appointment so they can execute these documents, because legal advice is required for all reverse mortgage loans. So that's just something to be aware of. Once the documentation is returned, and our legal team will then complete a thorough check of these documents and then advise if there are any documents outstanding. And these usually current bank statements, insurance, certificate of currency, and very commonly the certificate of title. Once we've received all that back and we ensure that it's all sufficient, we will then proceed to settlement. If there is a clear title, of course, we can then proceed to booking within 48 hours, assuming all supporting documentation has been received. If there is a mortgage on title, our legal team, First Mortgage Services, or FMS, will send a PEXA invite to the other financial institution. And in this case, there can be further delays with the other financial institution having to accept that invite. Then at this point, settlement will be booked and FMS act on our behalf and execute that settlement via PEXA. So that's really the high level overall application process from really start to finish. Now we'll move on to the common delays that you may find with this application process. I think it's important to be around this. If you're aware of the common delays, it will it will raise the likelihood of there being less delays throughout the application process. So you have a much more smoother experience. As I've already kind of mentioned earlier, we have the application form come back sometimes incomplete or incorrect. So please have as much detailed notes as you can to assist with their credit with their assessment. Supporting documents, so income rates and ID are always required, and if there's outgoing debt, we need to see the statement. So these will always be required, regardless of the deal. So, and of course, the other items such as the power of attorney will be are as applicable. Agreement for ID verification by third-party systems. So there is a box in the application form that will need to be ticked where the basically the client will agrees to have their identity verified via our third-party systems. Basically, if this is selected, our searches we complete for AML, PEP, and fraud can be completed and save so much time. When this isn't ticked, it creates quite a few more hurdles for our assessment team. So that will do wonders. And then we have the discharge authority. If we are able to lodge a DA early, the outgoing lender will be ready for settlement sooner. So you can get that discharge authority in as early as you can, even at the assessment stage. We can ensure we lodge that as early as possible. And then loan agreement execution. When documents are signed, just make sure your client pays attention to the checklist provided. So the solicitor basically returns everything that is required. We sometimes receive documents back that that is sufficient, or we're missing a few things. So just make sure that they're all over that. And I'm just going to move on to a couple of scenarios. So scenario one, we have a single borrower, 75 years old. His unencumbered home, $900,000. And he's seeking $270,000 for funding. There's a $200,000 initial advance, mainly around for home improvements, and $70,000 cash reserve for future medical expenses and travel. Because there was limited information in the application form, especially around the home improvements, we had to inquire further, especially regarding the $200,000. Home renovations. We only allow for cosmetic home renovations, usually for anything structural. It's unacceptable for a loan at Heartland Seniors. So with further investigation, they found that the funds were required for structural home improvements. And in particular, it was for a part of the property was being demolished. And so that was unacceptable. And so that resulted in a decline. So I think it's just important to, you're having your conversations with your customers, but you're also having the conversations with us, the broker team. It might have been something we could have, we would have pulled up on at the beginning, and then we could have basically maybe saved 5 or 6 days before we declined it. Scenario two. So we have two borrowers who are 72 and 65 years old, have a home valued at $5.5 million of funding, $865,000 for initial advance, refinance, renovations, $200,000 cash reserve for future needs, $210,000 for regular advance, which is $3,500 over 5 years on a monthly basis. So it was a smooth application process from submission through to approval. There were no real snags along the way, but it was only until once the documents were generated, the customer actually, there was a big delay because the customer had trouble finding legal advice, finding the right solicitor, and yeah, it resulted in a 12-week delay, which resulted in a shortfall due to the higher payout figure. Luckily, we had a cash reserve set up, which were able to cover that shortfall. In some cases, the cash reserve facility will not be set up to cover that shortfall, and they might not have enough savings to cover it. So in some cases, we would have to stop the deal in its tracks right there. So that's just an important one to be cognizant of, and especially I think it's important to have the conversations with your client about ensuring that that they're going to be booked, that they could book in for a solicitor appointment earlier on. And really, that's it for me. I can run through some questions if there's some up in the question box, or if you want to put some more through. Just give you a moment. So I've just got two questions here. I got one from Clara. When borrowing for renovations, is the valuation taken into account that the value of the property will increase? So no, it's not. It is valued on an as-is basis. So basically, yeah, not from there. You want to add to that?
Yeah. So the valuation is done on an as-is basis. So as at the time the valuation goes onto the property. However, of course, if we know that the funds are going to be put back into the property to, be used for renovations or cosmetic renovations to improve the overall sellability of the property, that's a good mitigator for us. And that's something that we can kind of work into our assessment. For instance, if the valuation came back and it was in pretty average condition, if we know that some of the funds are going to be put back into the property, then that kind of mitigates that in itself. So that's cool, and it definitely is good to know. But to answer the question, valuation is done on an as-is basis.
Nice. Okay. Oh. Sorry, Clara. Does the client need to involve a solicitor? So all Heartland applications do require solicitor's advice, especially when it comes to executing the document. So that's the case for all Heartland applications. So we asked about insurance renewal for over 600 PA, not under. No, insurance it's under $600, right?
Yeah. So in the expense section on the application form, you check in the rates amount, you check in the amount the customer pays for their insurance. If that figure is less than $600 that they pay per annum, then we will need to see confirmation of that.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. So I can't. I don't understand that question. So I just need to test my microphone because I'm having issues. It's fine. Clara, for your question, if the client is not sure about the exact expense figure, can it be stated as up to? We're just wondering what expense you are talking about in that regard. I'll be happy to answer that question after the webinar anyway, but I can get back to you on that one anyway. Got a question here from Stan. How many credit cards are you happy to refinance, and is it possible to do something if the client has a default on the credit card? Yep, we're basically happy to refinance all the credit cards in that case. Is it possible to do something if a client has a default on the credit card file? It's on a case-by-case basis, really, but we would still be happy to look at it. So just send it through, and like I said, send it through prior to submission. We can discuss that with the broker team. So what is the max size property allowed for a reverse mortgage? 10 hectares, that is. So yeah, 10 hectares, which is about 24 acres, I believe. I hope I got that right. Hi, Clara. I'm sorry that we've had issues with the volume. I'll be happy to address these questions in an email if you guys can't hear me that well. Yeah, I apologize for that. Right, I apologize for those the sound issues we just had, but yeah, like I said, I will address those issues in writing, all those questions. So I'll get to you back. I'll get to you on that. Anyway, that was the end of the webinar. I really appreciate you guys all attending today. I hope you managed to take something away, and hopefully you'll manage to have a smoother application process going forward. Any kind of questions you guys may have, feel free to give me a call. Here's my number right here, or contact the help and support team. The broker's email address down at the bottom. We'll be happy to address any kind of questions you may have. Anyway, thanks for attending, guys. Thank you.